I built this empire for my daughter. I paved the streets of this industry with my own blood so she could walk on gold. Then she married him. He didn't just take her heart. He took her life, and then he reached for my crown. He thinks he owns my legacy. He's about to find out that some things are earned, and some things are taken back with interest. Welcome back to the channel. Grab your coffee, get comfortable, and remember, the people in these stories had every opportunity to play it straight. They had every chance to walk away clean. They just chose the hard way. Drop a comment to let us know where you're watching from, and what time is it there. You're going to enjoy this one. I'm 65 years old. At this age, a man should be looking at sunsets and counting his blessings. Instead, I'm sitting in a black sedan outside a building that bears my name, counting the number of ways I'm going to ruin the man sitting in my office. Vance International wasn't just a company. It was a promise. When Sarah was born, I held her in the hospital wing of a building I had just mortgaged to the hilt. I whispered to her that the world would be hers. And for 35 years, I made sure of it. Sarah was brilliant. She had my steel but her mother's grace. She was the chief operating officer, my right hand, and the light of my life. Then came Marcus. He was 40 when they met, a turnaround specialist, with a smile that never quite reached his eyes. I saw through him in 10 minutes. But Sarah, she saw a project. She saw a man she could build up. I warned her. I told her, Sarah, a man who loves the mirror that much has no room to love anything else. But she was 35, head over heels, and convinced she could handle him. For 3 years, I watched him like a hawk. I saw the way he'd slide into meetings he wasn't invited to. I saw the way he'd drop "we" when talking about Sarah's achievements. He was a parasite, slowly weaving himself into the DNA of my family. Then, the accident happened. 2 years ago, a rainy night, a slick road, and a phone call that ended my world. Sarah was gone. The grief was a fog that didn't lift for months. And in that fog, Marcus moved. He didn't just mourn, he politicked. While I was staring at her childhood photos, he was taking the board members out for steak dinners. While I was visiting her grave, he was helping with the legal paperwork regarding her shares. Because they were married, and because Sarah, ever the optimist, hadn't protected her assets from her husband, Marcus became the second largest shareholder of Vance International overnight. If you've ever seen someone try to steal a legacy they didn't build, hit that like button right now. Let's get back to the story. The first year after her death, Marcus played the grieving widower. He wore the black suits, he kept a photo of her on his desk, and he spoke in hushed tones about carrying on her vision. It was a masterpiece of acting. But 6 months ago, the mask started to slip. He started questioning my decisions in front of the staff. He started bringing in his own people, sharks from his old firms, and putting them in key positions. He was pruning my garden and planting weeds. It culminated this morning. I walked into the boardroom for the quarterly review. Marcus was already there, sitting in my chair. My chair. The one Sarah bought me when we hit our first billion. Arthur, he said, not even looking up from his tablet. You're late. We've already started. You're in my seat, Marcus, I said, my voice steady, though my heart was a hammer. The board felt it was time for a change in leadership. He replied, finally looking at me. His eyes were cold. Stability, Arthur. Investors are worried about your emotional state. 2 years is a long time to be grieving. The company needs a pilot who's looking at the horizon, not the rearview mirror. I looked around the table. Men I'd known for 30 years, men whose children's tuition I'd paid, looked at their shoes. Marcus had bought them. Or maybe he'd just convinced them I was a relic. I built this, Marcus, I whispered. And I'm going to save it, he snapped. I've already negotiated a merger with Titanium Group. We're pivoting to tech logistics. Your old manufacturing plants? We're selling them off. This Sarah Vance Memorial Wing at the hospital? Funding is being diverted to the R&D department. He was erasing her. To save a buck, he was erasing the only thing left of my daughter. Marcus thought I was an old man with a broken heart. He forgot that I was a wolf who'd survived 3 recessions and a dozen corporate raids. A merger with Titanium? I asked, pulling a chair to the opposite end of the table. That's a bold move, Marcus. Especially since Titanium is currently under investigation by the SEC for money laundering. Marcus scoffed. Rumors. My due diligence is flawless. Is it? I slid a folder across the table. Because I did my own due diligence. Not on Titanium, but on you. You see, Marcus, I never trusted you. Even when Sarah was alive, I kept a file. I saw those consulting fees you were paying to a firm called M Digital. I traced that firm back to a Caribbean shell company, and I found out that you were the majority owner of Titanium Group's parent company. The room went silent. The board members finally looked up. You're selling my company to yourself? I said. You're stripping the assets of Vance International to pump up your own private holdings. That's not a merger, Marcus. That's grand larceny. For a second, I saw it. The panic, the twitch in his jaw. I had him. The board started murmuring. The stabilizing force was looking a lot like a common thief. Marcus thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. Are you Team Arthur or Team Marcus? Tell me in the comments. I want to see the debate. But Marcus didn't get to where he was by folding at the first sign of trouble. He leaned back, the panic vanishing as quickly as it appeared. He looked at the board and waved his hand dismissively. Arthur's evidence is circumstantial at best. It'll take years in court to prove any of that. And by then, the merger will be complete and the board will be 5 times richer. He turned to me, a cruel smirk playing on his lips. But since you want to play dirty, let's talk about Sarah. Don't you dare say her name, I growled. I'm her legal next of kin, Arthur. Which means I have the rights to her estate. All of it, including the Vance family plot. He leaned in closer, his voice a poisonous whisper. I know how much you value that quiet spot by the lake where she's buried. If you move forward with these accusations, I will have her exhumed. I'll move her to the cheapest, loudest cemetery in the state. I'll make sure you never have a moment of peace with her again. Is your company worth her dignity? My blood ran cold. The man was a monster. He was using my dead daughter as a human shield. The board looked horrified, but they stayed silent. This was personal now. This was a war of souls. I felt the defeat washing over me. How do you fight a man who has no bottom? I looked at the photo of Sarah I kept in my vest pocket. I felt like I was failing her all over again. I couldn't protect her from the rain that night, and now I couldn't protect her from this snake. Sign the retirement papers, Arthur, Marcus said, sliding a pen toward me. Sign them, and she stays where she is. You can visit her every Sunday. You can keep your memories. Just give me the keys. I reached for the pen. My hand was shaking. Marcus was grinning, the victor's light in his eyes. Wait, I said. Before I sign, I want to play something for the board. A final message from the COO. Something she recorded for the company's 50th anniversary that we never got to use. Marcus rolled his eyes. Fine. One last bit of sentimentality. Then sign the papers. I pulled out a remote and keyed it to the boardroom's massive AV system. But it wasn't a corporate video that appeared. It was a webcam recording, dated 3 days before Sarah's accident. Sarah appeared on the screen. She looked tired, her hair in a messy bun, sitting in her home office. Hi, Dad, she said. The sound of her voice hit me like a physical blow. The board went still. Marcus froze, his hand still on the retirement papers. If you're watching this, Sarah said on screen, it means I'm not there to tell you this myself. Dad, I'm sorry. I should have listened to you about Marcus. I found the M Digital files. I found the Titanium merger plans on his laptop last night. Marcus jumped up. Turn that off. This is private property. Sit down, Marcus, the lead director shouted. For the first time, the board was standing up. Sarah continued, her voice cracking. I loved him, but I love our legacy more. I knew if I confronted him, he'd try to bury the evidence. So, I've hidden a secondary server in the Vance server farm. It's encrypted with a key that only triggers if my biometric ID is used after a period of 24 months of inactivity. It contains every email, every bank transfer, and every recorded conversation I had with Marcus over the last year. It also contains my updated will. She looked directly into the camera, and it felt like she was looking through time, right at me. Dad, I know you're hurting, but don't let him take what we built. I've updated my will to include a morality and integrity clause. If Marcus is ever found to be acting against the interests of the company, his shares don't go to him. They are held in a trust controlled by you, specifically to be used for the charities we started. He gets nothing, not a cent, not even a memory. The ultimate revenge from beyond the grave. If you think Sarah was a genius for this, subscribe to the channel right now for more stories like this. The video cut to black. The silence in the room was so thick you could hear Marcus's heavy, ragged breathing. It's a fake, Marcus hissed. Deep fake. AI. You're desperate, Arthur. I didn't say a word. I just pointed at the screen. A new window had opened. It was a live upload bar. Data transfer complete. The secondary server had unlocked. Thousands of documents were now being beamed directly to the SEC, the FBI, and every board member's personal email. Sarah's biometric kill switch had triggered exactly 2 years to the day after her burial. She had timed it perfectly. She knew it would take me this long to find my feet. She knew Marcus would wait this long to make his move. The boardroom doors opened. 2 men in dark suits stepped in. They weren't my security. They were federal agents. Marcus Thorne, the lead agent, asked, "You're under arrest for wire fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy." Marcus looked at me, his face twisted in a mask of pure hatred. "You ruined it. You ruined everything. It was mine. I was the CEO." "No, Marcus," I said, standing up and walking over to him. I took the pin he'd tried to force on me and tucked it into his breast pocket. "It was always hers. You were just a bad investment. And today, we're writing you off." As they let him out in handcuffs, he was screaming about his rights, about the money, about how he belonged to the elite. He didn't even mention Sarah's name. Not once. I stood in the boardroom alone after everyone had left. The sun was beginning to set, casting long, golden shadows across the mahogany table. I sat down in my chair. It felt heavy. It felt right. I picked up the photo of Sarah and turned it toward the window so she could see the city she helped build. The company was saved. The titanium merger was dead. The board had spent the last hour groveling, begging for forgiveness, promising to reinstate every program Marcus had tried to cut. I'd fired half of them anyway. I didn't need cowards in my garden. I drove out to the cemetery that evening. It was quiet, just the sound of the wind in the trees and the distant lap of the lake water. I sat by her headstone and told her everything. I told her Marcus was gone. I told her the wing at the hospital was going to be doubled in size. I realized then that Marcus thought he belonged to the company because of a marriage certificate. He thought he belonged to the power because he sat in the chair. But he never understood that a legacy isn't something you inherit by trickery. It's something you build with love and you protect with everything you have. Marcus is currently serving 15 years in a federal penitentiary. His millions were seized to pay back the company he tried to bleed dry. He spends his days in a concrete cell, a far cry from the Tuscany villas he dreamed of. And me? I'm still at the helm. I'm 67 now. I'm tired, but I'm at peace. Because every morning when I walk into that building, I see her name. I see her vision. And I know that as long as I'm breathing, no one will ever make the mistake of trying to take what belongs to Sarah Vance again. What would you have done if you were in Arthur's shoes? Did he wait too long? Or was the timing perfect? Drop your thoughts below. Don't forget to tell us where you're watching from and what time it is there. Make sure to subscribe. We've got more stories of true consequences coming your way soon. See you in the next one.